Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
So it's September, according to the calendar, maybe according to your weather, or according to the fact that your kids are back in school, whatever that may be. Our calendar doesn't, our weather doesn't really tell me here in Northern California that it is fall. When I think of September, I think of the leaves changing and crisp mornings and nights, maybe having to wear layers. I saw on Facebook today that one of my friends in Montana had a fire tonight to keep off the chill. My friend in Alaska is playing the game of how late can she go without turning the heat on. It really depends on where you live, right? I'm still running the AC here. It has cooled down a bit. It's not 108 this week, which is fabulous. But this is the time of year when all the memes on Facebook suddenly go to pumpkin spice lattes or pumpkin spice in general, or memes of Halloween, especially Hocus Pocus. I kind of like the Hocus Pocus memes, getting ready for, just that Halloween-y time of year. They go to sweaters and jackets and boots and all those great things, which I can't wear until probably November here, but whatever. If you live elsewhere, then you can. At any rate, it's fall, sort of. We're back in school. Most people are back in school, and things have transitioned away from summer to a new season despite the weather. So what does that mean? Well, it means a lot of things. But one of the things that it means is that you're going to start seeing ads and notices about getting your flu shot. I went to my pharmacy a couple weeks ago, or a week or so ago, it doesn't really matter, to pick up a prescription and saw the reminder cards that were out. Don't forget to get your flu shot. And I thought, oh yes, I need to do that. So I went back a couple of days later. I didn't have time that specific day, and I got my flu shot. The pharmacist who gave me my flu shot at the pharmacy, I go to a CVS in Target near my house, and mostly just because I like to go wander around Target when I pick up prescriptions. Has absolutely nothing to do with the specific pharmacy. But so he was about to give me my flu shot, and I'm not sure if he thought I was nervous or if he's just used to people who don't like needles, who don't like shots. I don't have a problem with needles. I don't have a problem with shots or getting my blood drawn. I, in fact, prefer to watch when it happens. I just find it fascinating. But maybe he was used to people who get nervous, and so he tries to distract them. So he says to me, "What do you think CVS stands for?" And then we had this very silly back and forth conversation of all the things that we could think of that CVS might stand for. And of course, none of them were actual guesses related to what CVS could actually stand for. I mean, we came up with chocolate vanilla sundae and, silly things like that. But in the meantime, he gave me my flu shot while we were talking. And so that was very sweet of him. I didn't need the distraction, but it was kind of a fun conversation. At any rate, I got my flu shot. So I try to make sure I do that every year. I have for a while now, especially the past 10 to 15 years with my asthma and other health issues. I try to make sure I get my flu shot. But I know that there are a lot of questions surrounding the flu shot. So we are going to take this episode to talk about flu shots, what they are, who should get them, what there might be complications of, etc., etc. A lot of this information is coming from the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention website, which makes sense in terms of a vaccination. So the first question is, well, why should you get a flu shot? Why should you get vaccinated against the flu? Flu is short for influenza, of course, and we have talked about the flu on this show before. I think I remember a conversation Heidi and I had, and I have to jump in here with my little soapbox issue. Stomach flu is not the same thing as influenza, where you get sick and you throw up and maybe have diarrhea, etc. I hear people complain all the time. I got my flu shot and I still got the stomach flu. It's not the same thing. That is not what you're getting vaccinated for. So just putting that out there once again, that you could still get the stomach flu even if you get the flu vaccine, because it's not the same thing. I don't think you can get vaccinated against the stomach flu, honestly. I wish you could. Okay, so why should you get vaccinated against the flu? Influenza is a potentially serious disease that can lead to hospitalization and sometimes even death. I mean, every year you hear about a number of people who die from influenza. Every flu season is different, and influenza can affect different people differently, but millions of people get the flu every year. Hundreds of thousands of people are hospitalized, and thousands or tens of thousands of people die from flu-related causes every year. An annual seasonal flu vaccine is the best way to help protect against the flu. Vaccination has been shown to have many benefits, including reducing the risk of flu illness, hospitalizations, and even the risk of flu-related death in children. So your first question may be, how does a flu vaccine work? Well, the vaccine causes antibodies to develop in the body about 2 weeks after vaccination. So that's a good thing to remember. If you get the flu shot and you're exposed to someone who has the flu, you might not be fully protected for 2 weeks until that takes effect. But these antibodies provide protection against infection with the viruses that are in the vaccine. The seasonal flu vaccine protects against the influenza viruses that research indicates will be the most common during the upcoming season. Remember, there are multiple different strains of influenza, and so you can't protect against all of them, but researchers try to figure out, what are going to be the most common during the upcoming season. Traditional flu vaccines, which are called trivalent vaccines, are made to protect against 3 flu viruses: an influenza A, which is H1N1 virus, an influenza A H3N2 virus, and an influenza B virus. There are also flu vaccines made to protect against 4 flu viruses called quadrivalent vaccines. And these vaccines protect against the same viruses as the trivalent vaccine with an additional B virus. So there are a lot of different flu options out there. Not that you're shopping for the flu, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of different types of flu. So what kinds of flu vaccines are available? Well, the CDC recommends use of any licensed age-appropriate influenza vaccine during the flu season, including inactive influenza vaccine, recombinant influenza vaccine, or live attenuated influenza vaccine. No preference is expressed for any influenza vaccine over another. Both trivalent and quadrivalent flu vaccines will be available. So in a trivalent flu vaccine, you get 1 standard dose trivalent flu shot, which is manufactured using virus grown in eggs. The shot can be given either with a needle for people ages 5 years and older, or with a jet injector for people aged 18 through 64 years only. A high-dose trivalent flu shot is approved for people 65 years and older, and a trivalent flu shot made with adjuvant is approved for people 65 years and older. So there are different options depending on your age and what you can take. I know there are different options for pregnant women. So it's important to ask what might be the appropriate flu shot for your age, your health situation, etc. And usually when you go in for a flu shot, they have you fill out a brief form that asks a bunch of questions of allergies and different questions of what you might be allergic to. I just said that allergies, but different health questions to make sure that you are that it's the right time to get a flu shot. If you're feeling sick, you shouldn't get one. If you have a temperature, you shouldn't get one, etc. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of the podcast, and when we come back, we'll be talking more about the flu shot. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, and I'll be right back.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Welcome back to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. I am talking about flu shots. And before the break, I was talking about the different types of trivalent flu vaccines. And there are also the quadrivalent flu vaccines, which include the standard dose, again, that is manufactured using virus grown in eggs. And there are many different kinds, which are approved for different age groups. Some are approved for children as young as 6 months of age, but most flu shots are given in the arm, in the muscle, with a needle. One quadrivalent flu shot can be given either with a needle or with the jet injector. That's for people aged 18 through 64 years only. Then you have the quadrivalent cell-based flu shot containing a virus grown in a cell culture that is egg-free, which is approved for people 4 years and older. That's one of the things they ask you. Are you allergic to eggs? And a recombinant quadrivalent flu shot, which is approved for people 18 years and older. Are any of the available flu vaccines recommended over others? Let's see. For the 2018-2019 flu season, which was last year, the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices recommended the annual influenza vaccination for everyone 6 months and older with any licensed age-appropriate flu vaccine, including inactivated influenza vaccine, etc. So you might be asking, do I really need to get a flu shot? Who should get a flu shot? Well, this says everyone 6 months of age and older should get a flu vaccine every season. And this is different than what it used to be. I know when I was in college, they were only recommended for people with certain health issues, people who were over a certain age. I started getting mine because of, as I mentioned, the asthma and some of the allergies and sinus issues I have. It was recommended by my doctor. But at that point, which was 1,006 years ago, it wasn't necessarily recommended for everyone, but now everyone 6 months of age or older should get one because it does prevent a lot of unnecessary hospitalizations and, in the worst case scenarios, death. So this recommendation has been in place since February 24th of 2010, when CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, which is ACIP, voted for universal flu vaccination in the United States to expand protection against the flu to more people. Vaccination to prevent influenza is particularly important for people who are at high risk of serious complications from influenza. And there's more information on all of this. If you want to read more, you can go, of course, to the CDC website, cdc.gov, or you can do your own research and find other websites to get different viewpoints, maybe. So are there people that shouldn't be vaccinated? Different flu vaccines that we saw earlier are recommended for different age groups. In addition, some vaccines are not recommended for certain groups. Factors that can determine a person's suitability for vaccination or vaccination with a particular vaccine include a person's a person's age, health, which is current and past, and any allergies to flu vaccine or its components. Now, here's the big question. When should you get vaccinated? When I started doing some research for this show, I clicked on, who should get vaccinated, what is a flu vaccine, etc. And one thing that kept popping up was, don't get your flu vaccine too soon. And I thought, well, it's too late for me. I already got it. So this says you should get a flu vaccine before flu begins spreading in your community. As we mentioned earlier, it takes about 2 weeks after vaccination for the antibodies that protect against flu to develop in your body. The CDC recommends that people get a flu vaccine by the end of October. Getting vaccinated later, however, can still be beneficial, and vaccination should continue to be offered throughout the flu season, even into January or later. Children who need 2 doses of vaccine to be protected should start the vaccination process sooner because the 2 doses must be given at least 4 weeks apart. So where can you get your flu vaccine? Well, I got mine at my pharmacy. You can also get it in your doctor's office. I've done that. It just depends on, do I have a doctor's appointment at the right time? Sometimes I'm in my doctor's office when it's September and I say, hey, can I get a flu shot? And they say, sure. So there you go. But you can still get a vaccine somewhere else, like a health department, a pharmacy, an urgent care clinic, or often your school, your college health center, or your workplace. Sometimes, college health center, you should definitely be able to, but sometimes they have flu shots available at certain schools, or certain workplaces will offer them. You can always look up where you can get a flu shot near you if you aren't sure. And some people say, well, I got it last year, and why do I need to get a flu shot every year? It's needed every year for 2 reasons. First, the body's immune response from vaccination declines over time, so an annual vaccine is needed for optimal protection. Second, because flu viruses are constantly changing, the formulation of the flu vaccine is reviewed each year and updated as needed to keep up with changing flu viruses. For the best protection, everyone 6 months and older should get vaccinated annually. Again, this is different than it was before 2010. Remember, again, that it takes about 2 weeks for those antibodies to develop in your body. Now, the effectiveness of the vaccine can vary. Every year you hear about strains of flu that people get that were not included in the vaccine, and people get grumpy with that, but I don't want to be the person that has to try to figure out which flu vaccines to give people, what's going to be more common than others. So the influenza vaccine effectiveness can vary from season to season. The protection provided by a flu vaccine depends on the age and health status of the person getting the vaccine and the similarity or match between the viruses or virus in the vaccine and those in circulation. And then, so it is possible, as I mentioned earlier, to get sick with the flu, even if you have been vaccinated, although you aren't going to know for sure that it's the flu unless you get a flu test, because I kind of shake my head sometimes. I laugh because how many times do you hear on commercials or anywhere when they're talking about symptoms, and one of the symptoms is flu-like symptoms. I think sometimes hangnails are reported as coming with flu-like symptoms. Flu-like symptoms are everywhere, so you will only know that you have actual influenza and not just flu-like symptoms if you get a test from your doctor. But it is possible to get the flu even if you have been vaccinated. So it's possible for the following reasons. You could be exposed to a flu virus shortly before getting vaccinated or during that 2-week period where it takes your body to develop those antibodies. Geez, I keep trying to say antibodies to gain protection. This exposure could result in you getting the flu, becoming ill before the vaccine begins to protect you. You could be exposed to a flu virus that is not included in the seasonal flu vaccine. As I said, there are so many different flu viruses that circulate every year. A flu vaccine is made to protect against the 3 or 4 flu viruses that research suggests will be the most common. Unfortunately, some people can become infected with a flu virus. A flu vaccine is designed to protect against, despite having been vaccinated. Protection provided by a flu vaccination can vary widely, based in part on health and age factors of the person getting vaccinated. In general, a flu vaccine works best among healthy younger adults and older children. Some older people and people with certain chronic illnesses may develop less immunity after vaccination. Flu vaccination is not a perfect tool, but it is the best way to protect from getting the flu. So don't let that discourage you. You know that it is still possible to get the flu. Though the numbers of people who get the flu with the flu vaccine are so much lower than the benefits of actually getting the flu shot and being protected during the cold and flu season. You want to try to stay as healthy as you can during cold and flu season because you're going to get colds. You can't protect against colds, but you can protect against the flu. Let's go ahead and take our second break of the podcast, and when we come back, we'll be wrapping up this episode on flu shots. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. I am talking about flu shots. Tis the season for pumpkin spice lattes and flu shots. So maybe you could reward yourself with a pumpkin spice latte after your flu shot. I'm going to say something that might make people throw things at me. I hate pumpkin spice lattes. I don't hate pumpkin. I don't have anything against pumpkin spice. I like it in my pumpkin pie. I like other things that are pumpkin flavored or pumpkin spice flavored, but every year, maybe not every year, but most years I think, okay, I got to try it again. It's so popular. People love the pumpkin spice latte. And every year I'm like, still don't like it. So anyway, everyone has different tastes. I just don't get a pumpkin spice latte, but I do get a flu shot. So that is important. And we were talking before the break about, I don't know if that's the royal we or if I'm including you when I say we. I know you can't speak to me but I feel like we're having a conversation-ish, one-sided. I'm sure you're talking back, right? Okay, we were talking about that some people do still get a different form of the flu, or still get the flu after being vaccinated, which sucks. I totally agree, but it doesn't mean that you should skip the flu shot. So flu vaccination has been shown in some studies to reduce the severity of illness in people who get vaccinated but who still get sick. A 2017 study showed that flu vaccination reduced deaths, intensive care unit admissions, ICU length of stay, and overall duration of hospitalization among hospitalized flu patients. Another study in 2018 showed that a vaccinated adult who was hospitalized with flu was 59% less likely to be admitted to the intensive care unit than someone who had not been vaccinated. Among adults in the ICU with flu, vaccinated patients on average spent 4 fewer days in the hospital than those who were not vaccinated. In addition, it's important to remember that flu vaccine protects against 3 or 4 different viruses, and multiple viruses usually circulate during any one season. For these reasons, the CDC continues to recommend flu vaccination for everyone 6 months or older, even if vaccine effectiveness against one or more viruses is reduced. And every year I hear people say, I got my flu shot and I still got sick. Well, did you have the actual flu? Did you have a cold? The flu, it's not a magic wand. It's not going to ensure that you don't get sick at all during the winter. You're probably still going to get a cold. You could still get strep throat or something else, but the flu, it can be very dangerous. It can cause you to get extremely sick. It can cause you to be hospitalized. In the worst case scenarios, it can cause death. And if you still get sick with the flu after having a vaccination, those studies have shown that your hospitalization time could be less, your recovery time could be less, you're less likely to be admitted to the intensive care unit. So these are all really good reasons to get the flu if you are on the fence. Get the flu shot if you're on the fence about it. So, vaccine benefits. Let's just wrap up with the benefits of the flu vaccination. There are, of course, many reasons to get the vaccine every year. It can keep you from getting sick with the flu, as we've mentioned. It can reduce the risk of flu-associated hospitalization for children, working-age adults, and other adults, as we mentioned in those from those studies earlier. Flu vaccination helps prevent serious medical events associated with some chronic conditions. It has been associated with lower rates of some cardiac events among people with heart disease, especially among those who had a cardiac event in the past year. Flu vaccination also has been shown in separate studies to be associated with reduced hospitalization among people with diabetes and chronic lung diseases. Vaccination helps protect women during and after pregnancy. It reduces the risk of flu-associated acute respiratory infection in pregnant women by up to 1/2. A 2018 study showed that getting a flu shot reduced a pregnant woman's risk of being hospitalized with flu by an average of 40%. Getting vaccinated can also protect a baby after birth from flu because mom passes the antibodies on to the developing baby during the pregnancy. A number of studies have shown that in addition to helping to protect pregnant women, a flu vaccine given during pregnancy helps protect the baby from flu infection for several months after birth when he or she is not old enough to be vaccinated. Flu vaccines can be life-saving in children. So right there, that seems reason enough to me. Flu vaccination has been shown in several studies to reduce severity of illness in people who get vaccinated but still get sick, as we mentioned before. And getting vaccinated yourself may also protect people around you, including those who are more vulnerable to serious flu illnesses, like babies and young children, older people, and people with certain chronic health conditions. And that was another reason why that's another reason why I get a vaccine every year. I want to protect my own health, but especially in years past, I have worked with more vulnerable populations, visiting people in nursing homes, in hospital, visiting shut-ins, etc. And I don't want to take germs to them if I can absolutely prevent it. So if you don't want it for yourself, get a flu shot to protect those around you. Show your love. Get a flu shot. So what are the side effects? A lot of people think that maybe getting a flu shot will give you the flu. No. Flu vaccines that are administered with a needle are currently made in 2 ways. It's either made with a flu vaccine virus that has been killed or inactivated and therefore is not infectious, or B, with proteins from a flu vaccine virus instead of flu vaccine viruses, which is the case for the recombinant influenza vaccine. However, the viruses are unattenuated, which means they are weakened, and therefore cannot cause flu illness. The weakened virus are cold adapted, which means they're designed to only cause infection at the cooler temperatures found within the nose. The viruses cannot infect the lungs or other areas where warmer temperatures exist. So some of the side effects that can occur after getting a flu vaccine, you can get... There are different side effects depending on if you get a flu shot or the nasal spray flu vaccine, but the side effects are mild, usually short-lasting, especially compared to actually getting the flu. So with the flu shot, you can have soreness, redness, or swelling where the shot was given. You can have a low-grade fever, and you can have aches. I think this is where people think that getting the flu shot will give you the flu, because they're, again, those ubiquitous flu-like symptoms, right? Fever, low-grade fever, and aches. That can sound an awful lot like what people associate with the flu. With the nasal spray, some of the side effects can include runny nose, wheezing, headache, vomiting, muscle aches, and fever. That's pretty common for a lot of nasal sprays. In adults, that was for children, but in adults, the side effects from the nasal spray may include runny nose, headache, sore throat, or cough. If these problems do occur, they begin soon after vaccination and are mild and short-lived. Almost all people who receive influenza vaccine have no serious problems from it. However, on rare occasions, flu vaccination can cause serious problems. Just like anything in the world, there are those rare occasions, such as severe allergic reactions. So people who think that they have been injured by the flu shot you need to pay attention to that. You need to go see your doctor. You need to figure out what's going on if you're having a reaction or something else. So get your flu shot. Do it for me. do it for your podcast host. No, do it for your loved ones. Do it for yourself. Do it for your health. Get your flu shot and then celebrate with a pumpkin spice latte, or not. Celebrate with the beverage of your choice, or get some chocolate. Whatever it is that you can reward yourself with, do that. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the GSMC Health and Wellness Podcast. Please join me again next time. And in the meantime, hope you're having a wonderful week, and be well.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Health and Wellness Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.